Welcome to this week's episode of Campaign Corner. I'm Alexander Zupancic.
And I'm Matthew Corbin.
Today, we're talking to two candidates for North Carolina District 5B Superior Court Judge, Kent Harrell and Connie Jordan.
Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So, Ms. Jordan, as a current prosecutor, could you elaborate on some of the differences between the Superior Court judge and other judges here in North Carolina?
Yes, the main judges that work here in New Hanover and Pender counties are Superior Court judges and District Court judges. District Court judges handle matters like traffic matters, family law, other misdemeanor crimes like assault, driving while impaired, as long as it's not habitual. Those would be handled in District Court. There's also a section of juvenile court. All of that is covered by a District Court judge. Superior Court are the felonies that are charged across the state, and also misdemeanor appeals. There are certain items that you can appeal out of district court, and then it is any civil matter that involves a monetary amount of more than $25,000.
Okay. Mr. Harrell, is there anything that you would like to add to that?
No, there's a lot of confusion among the public about what judges do. They're just not familiar if they're not in the system. But that distinction of the felonies versus misdemeanors and the civil amount in controversy, and then Superior Court also handles some appeals from government agencies. But the brunt of it is the felony criminal cases and then the civil litigation.
Okay, now what are some of the, Mr. Harrell, what are some experiences you have working in the Superior Court?
I've been practicing in this district for 20 years, and my practice is actually in Burgaw. So being in a small town, you get a pretty wide variety of issues that come in the door. So I've handled the criminal side of the felony cases, but I've also done a lot of civil litigation in Superior Court as well, whether it's boundary disputes and easement issues or contract issues, construction negligence cases, a pretty wide range of issues. And then we've had appeals that came out of the clerk's office, for instance, in a will contest or an incompetency or guardianship proceeding. So I've got a wide range of experience on the civil side. On the criminal side, I used to be on the capital defenders list. So I would go around eastern North Carolina and would try murder cases. And then in Pender County, I was on the court-appointed list for many years and handled all types of burglary cases, rape cases, and drug cases on the criminal side.
Okay. Ms. Jordan, is there anything you would like to add to that about some of the things that you've experienced working in the Superior Court?
Well, I've had a different experience. I have not really done a little bit of everything. My experience has all been in Superior Court. I have been a prosecutor of violent crime in Superior Court for the past 19 years. I handle cases for our community. No one pays me to represent them, if that makes sense. I don't have clients. I prosecute cases on behalf of the community, and the caseload that I handle are most often complicated cases with complex legal issues, and very often in the specialty that I have handled for the past 19 years have included traumatized victims. I handled civil cases for the very beginning part of my career in Superior Court as well. A lot of those matters were consumer protection issues and boundary and land disputes. In our district, we have mandatory mediation in civil court, so that has drastically reduced the caseload that we see in civil Superior Court. There are about 420 cases, I think it's 421 cases pending in Superior Civil Court in our district. There are about 50 tax delinquencies that don't come into court. We get about 5,000, somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 felonies that come through our district every year, and the portion of those cases that I handle are the homicides and the sexual assaults, child abuse, home invasions, and armed robberies. So I have specialized in Superior Court with practicing Superior Court law exclusively for the past 19 years.
Can you tell us about some of the challenges of the campaigning process for the Superior Court here in North Carolina, Ms. Jordan?
I think that there are a few difficult things about it. One of them is a lot of people just aren't familiar with what a Superior Court judge does. The huge majority of our population never finds themselves in Superior Court unless they happen to be serving for jury duty, and even that isn't real common. We have 12 or 14, maybe 15 people who sit on every jury that comes through our Superior Court system, but that's not a lot of people, and so there aren't a lot of experienced people who understand what a Superior Court judge does. And if you're not in court on a weekly basis, even if you are familiar with what they do, you don't know what this particular person does. So it's kind of hard to convey what a Superior Court judge is responsible for and what you've done in the past, what your experience is. It's hard to make that meaningful for people in a way that I think makes sense for them and is valuable for them to consider when they go into the voting booth.
Mr. Harrell, what are some of the challenges that you're facing in the current office you're running for?
The challenge of running a campaign isn't really unique to this office. It's just the challenge of running a campaign in general. I've got a business. I have staff that have to be paid. I've got overhead expenses that need to be covered. So while raising money for the campaign is a difficult task, being able to get out, as Connie said, in the community to try to let people know who you are and what you're about, but balancing that with the need to still be in the office to take care of my clients and handle their cases and be in court when I have to be in court. It's a difficult thing to balance because my primary obligation is always to my clients. I can't shortchange them just for me to go out on the campaign trail. And I also can't let my staff suffer just because I'm pursuing an elected office. I have to make sure that they still get their paycheck every 2 weeks.
Now, Ms. Jordan, could you talk to us a little bit about what brought you to run for Superior Court Judge?
Sure. The last few cases I've handled have been really complicated, complex litigation that involved a lot of very unique issues under the law. During the course of time that I was handling, in particular the last homicide case, our Superior Court judge, our senior resident Superior Court judge, decided to retire after 25 years on the bench. He was a wonderful judge. We have great local Superior Court judges. We've been very blessed with that. He sent out the notice when I got his email saying that he would be retiring and taking 25 years of experience on the bench with him. I went to all of the Superior Court judges I work with to really get a feel for whether or not this was something that I would want to do and should do. And after those conversations, I felt compelled to do it. I have been, as a prosecutor, handling extremely serious cases in front of Superior Court judges who did not have a command of the law that I do, simply because I am in Superior Court every single week using that law. It is my language, it's what I do, and it's all I do. And if you are in front of a judge who is unsure or is not as knowledgeable in the law, it really can devastate a case. It can devastate a plaintiff's case or a defendant's case or someone who is accused. And I have seen cases where our community suffers, and certainly victims in cases suffer, and offenders have been free to offend again.
Mr. Harrell, what brought you to run for Superior Court Judge now?
Over the 20 years that I've been practicing, Connie mentioned being in court and seeing judges on the bench who didn't have a good grasp of the law. And she's right, it is absolutely devastating to that case, but also to the parties that are involved. And I've seen really good judges on the bench. And when you watch a trial with lawyers who understand the law, and you've got a judge on the bench who knows the law, then you know that justice is being served. The system is working. When you've got a judge on the bench who may not be as experienced as they need to be, or they don't have that grasp of the law, then parties suffer. Even on the civil side, if you've got a judge who doesn't have any understanding of the civil issues that they're dealing with, you can come in on a multi-million-dollar case on a motion for summary judgment, and the law is squarely in favor of one party or the other. But if the judge doesn't have a good grasp of the law and they deny the motion for summary judgment, those parties are incurring thousands of dollars in additional legal fees that should not have been incurred. And on the criminal side, if you've got a judge that makes the incorrect decision on an evidentiary issue, you could have evidence excluded that shouldn't be. You could have evidence come into the trial that shouldn't come in. It depends on the facts of each case. But either way, you're having a major impact on those parties and on the law in that area.
Now, Mr. Harrell, changing gears a little bit to a political question, could you talk a little bit about the voter ID conversation and if you think it'll affect turnout at the coming election?
I don't know that it will affect turnout. I think turnout is going to be high this year, but not because of voter ID issues. Turnout's going to be high this year because of the contentious nature of the national race.
Ms. Harrell, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Or sorry, Ms. Jordan, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I have heard some complaints or concerns from citizens about the voter ID law, but the huge majority of folks that I have spoken to are eager to get to the polls. And I think that it is because we have such a hotly contested election at the top. They as well, I find, have talked to me about really researching candidates and doing a really good job of pulling their ballot beforehand and going through it literally and knowing what they're going to do before they get into that voting booth. And I would highly recommend that to people. I feel like we're going to have a really high turnout this particular election.
Mm-hmm. Now, thank you both for joining us here on Campaign Corner. Is there anything before we leave that you'd like to add today?
I'd just like to thank you for putting this together and giving us an opportunity to come in and meet with you. It's a great opportunity to just kind of get our message out there and tell voters here at UNCW in particular who we are.
I graduated from UNCW a few years ago, many years ago, and so as an alumnus, I am just really excited to be here and doing this. I appreciate what y'all have brought together to be able to bring these issues to our community. I've watched some of the shows that you've put on already with the county commissioners, and the one I saw most recently was with Susie Hamilton and her opponent, and I think you do a wonderful job, and I really appreciate being here, and I would respectfully ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you both for joining us. Thank you again for joining us here on Campaign Corner. Please don't forget to tune in to uncwingspan.com for further episodes. I'm Matthew Corbin.
And I'm Alexander Zupancic.
And thank you for joining us.